Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, we got a quick 2A update. This one's not from too long ago, but I wanted to kind of elaborate on it because, look, we are actually accomplishing a heck of a lot in the courts right now, and they are dropping some doozies, okay? You remember that the brace ruling has been pretty much thrown out. We're looking like we're getting some good relief off of that. Same situation is starting to evolve, obviously, with the frame and receiver rule as well. So we are going to elaborate on this a bit. And we've got a great article here from Ammoland that will help bring everything into light for us here. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at CMMG for supporting our efforts here on the channel. They are the king of weird. They have some awesome stuff in the AR realm. I love their bufferless descent line, which is fantastic. They actually just introduced their new Mark 47 in the descent line. So, of course, it's their 7.62x39 AR, which is really awesome. Now with a folding stock and a non-reciprocating charging handle, forward charging handle, which is really nice. They have some awesome 22 conversion kits. Everything they're doing is just so fantastic. And if you're looking for anything that is super exacting and just awesome in the AR world, look no further than CMMG. Use the code IV8888 to receive a nice discount there. And also make sure you tell them that we sent you over. And a big thanks to CMMG for supporting our efforts here on the channel. Made right here in the US of A, baby. All right. This is an article by Mr. Duncan Johnson, 80% Arms, and their statement on the ATF's frame and receiver rule. This is an update here. All right, let's get right into this. Okay. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a landmark decision in Vanderstock versus Garland, overturning the ATF's frame and receiver rule and making another significant victory for 80% Arms. The court criticized the ATF for overstepping its regulatory authority, effectively accusing it of rewriting the law without proper legal basis. The court creatively used the cakes that look like food internet trend as an analogy to illustrate its point on gun regulation by drawing a parallel between a cake that looks like a hamburger or like a gun is not a hamburger or a gun. This comparison highlighted the ATF's flawed approach, where regulations were applied not just to genuine frames and receivers, but also to items that merely resembled them. Judge Oldman wrote an opinion supplementing the majority's findings in order to explore additional problems with the final rule, where he says the final rule is limitless. The GCA allows none of this. Judge Kurt Engelhardt, also supporting the majority opinion, stated, "The agency rule at issue here flouts clear statutory text and exceeds the legislatively imposed limits on agency authority in the name of public policy." He further clarified that the expansion of firearms regulation and the criminalization of actions that were previously legal are not sanctioned by Congress, rendering the proposed rule an unlawful agency action that goes against legislative intent. The court firmly concludes that until Congress codifies the Gun Control Act, the ATF must adhere to the existing statutory limits. The final rule, according to the court, crosses those boundaries, resulting in the ATF essentially rewriting the law, a move that is not permissible, particularly when it leads to the broad imposition of criminal liability without legislative input. Yeah, exactly. This stuff carries criminal penalties, and we're not talking just any criminal penalties either. We're talking do not, pass go, do not collect $200, go to jail for 10 years under the threat of death or worse, right? The Supreme Court's intervention means that the final rule will remain in effect until the legal proceedings are concluded. In all likelihood, the ATF will appeal again to the Supreme Court, where the court can either refuse to hear the case or agree to review it. If the Supreme Court agrees to review the case, it will involve a thorough examination of the legal and factual aspects as presented in the lower court's records and additional briefings submitted to the Supreme Court. After reviewing the case, the Supreme Court would issue a binding final judgment. Despite this victory at 80% Arms, we recognize the ongoing challenges ahead, particularly with the Supreme Court's stay keeping the frame and receiver rule active during the litigation. We remain undeterred, committed to continuing our fight against government overreach, and ready to confront ATF's likely appeal to the Supreme Court. Our team is prepared to put forward a vigorous legal battle should the Supreme Court choose to review the case. Our steadfast commitment and determination to upholding the rights and interests of our community and industry remains resolute. Wow, well stated. And this was just kind of a quick update, but this is, again, just a very distinctive type of precedence that is being set here in the courts, right? We're seeing that these lower circuit courts are starting to lay down some doozies because, look, anybody with half a brain can look at these situations and see that the ATF is abusing their authority and they are not going through the processes in the correct way. We've said this in previous videos. We've beat this horse until it's just as dead as it can possibly be. But again, I reiterate that we have checks and balances for a reason, right? There's a reason that we have separation of powers, right? So that no one government branch of the government can just run completely unchallenged and do whatever they want. You know, they have to have the blessings of the other branches of our government, okay? So when the president just swipes his pen and signs an executive order and says, well, this is what I want you to do, and here's why, just because the political wind fills the sails in that way, again, as we've said in many other videos, doesn't necessarily mean it's quite so simple. The president can tell me to walk off a cliff. It doesn't mean I'm going to walk off a cliff. And at the end of the day, these administrative agencies are being weaponized, right? I'm not going to get too far down the rabbit hole, but look at like things like the CIA and the FBI and all the other alphabet agencies and all of the controversy that is going on right now with all these folks. Look at all the whistleblowers and the FBI that have come out and bravely put their entire careers and the success of their family's future at risk in order to call out the things that are going on within the agency, right? Not only because they care about you, but they care about the health and future of the agency and the public relations, the way people look at the FBI and the way they perceive the FBI. And they care about the future of the FBI ultimately, because they're willing to put all of that on the table to call them out on their hypocrisy. Well, I guess it is bureaucracy as well, but on their hypocrisy. So when we look at these situations where the, alphabet agencies are being weaponized, it's not just the DOJ. It's not just, the ATF and the CIA and all your other alphabet agencies. I mean, the ATF is no different, right? They are simply just a tentacle attached to a large beast that the brain decides to decide what each of those tentacles is going to go grab after. And right now, the political winds fill the sails and whims and wishes of someone like Joe Biden, who clearly does not understand the Constitution or care for your rights or care for the Constitution in any way, and is completely willing to look the other way on what is morally permissible, right? Again, we know that all of these things are not legally permissible. They're unconstitutional, right? The frame and receiver rule, the bump stock ban, the brace ban, all of these things that they're doing, they know from day one that they're unconstitutional. They simply don't care, right? We're talking about a group of people that are morally bankrupt. They do not give a flying crap about you, right? They are willing to make you a political notch in their belt to climb to the top of the ivory tower and to get their nice fat pension and their raise and their promotion, right? And they don't care how many normal people they have to ruin the lives of in order to make that happen. And that's really what this all comes down to. Because without enforcers, right, these ideas that these politicians have are just bad ideas and nothing more if no one's willing to enforce it or carry out their wills and wishes. So you have to remember, at the end of the day, right, the president can say do X, Y, Z, but if no one wants to do X, Y, Z, well, then it ain't going to go anywhere. I mean, without these law enforcement jack-booted thugs out here trying to infringe on people's rights, knowing dang well what they're doing isn't right morally and definitely not legally, without them, these are just people with crappy ideas and nothing more. They are an extreme minority in the ocean of thought and ideas and logic and critical thinking. I mean, so look, be a critical thinker. You have to keep your head on a swivel and make sure you're understanding exactly what you're looking at. Don't believe everything the media tells you. Don't believe every little thing or every little narrative that you're spoon-fed when it comes to especially things about guns, right? You have to understand that anything the mainstream media says in regards to guns, right, is going to be biased towards the leftist establishment, the leftist narrative, the anti-gun narrative, if you will, right? They're going to parrot whatever narrative that they are made to parrot. They don't want to give you the actual facts and statistics. They just want to divide you. And most importantly, they want to control you. And that's really what all this comes down to. This is all about control. The frame and receiver rule, the bump stock ban, the brace ban. It's all control and nothing more. So look, don't get spun up over it, but just kind of remember that these things are out there, right? We are seeing some relief in the lower courts. Yes, the ATF is probably going to try to shoot it back and fight it back. Well, that's fine. We'll take it to the Supreme Court. And look, the Supreme Court has shown a renewed interest in wanting to hear more Second Amendment cases. So they're handing out some doozies. The one that we have seen come through. Look, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, whatever, the Bruin case, right? That particular one is a landslide to a victory, right? So these people are actually kind of dumb to throw all the spaghetti at the wall hoping that something is going to stick, because all they're really doing is giving us more ammunition to go to the Supreme Court and go, look, we need some relief here because these people obviously aren't working with a whole deck of cards, right? And look, the Supreme Court, they're not stupid, right? Even the liberal justices on the Supreme Court, they're a little bit, let's just say, anti-gun or more politically driven towards the left end of the spectrum or whatever. They're not conservative judges. They're not pro-gun. Even those people, at the end of the day, have to look at the black and white and go, I don't agree with this, but it is what it is. Now, that doesn't mean they're gonna decide that way and rule that way. But in their hearts and minds, come on. I mean, they're not stupid. Just because they're politically driven, they still have to look themselves in the mirror every day and go, you know what? I know they're not gonna go our way, the liberal ones, but they have to look themselves in the eye and realize, like, wow, I can't believe it. I don't know. Maybe they don't have any shame. Maybe I'm giving them way too much credit. Maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt to assume that they actually have a conscience. But there are right now, we have a majority of conservative judges on the Supreme Court. And look, remember back when I think it was Joe Manchin, right, that decided not to nuke the filibuster, right? They wanted to nuke the filibuster and pack the Supreme Court. And what did Joe Manchin do? He was like, you know what? I'm gonna disagree. I don't think we should nuke the filibuster, because if we do, future administrations are going to abuse the nuking of the filibuster. They're going to abuse that process in order to push through whatever they want as well. So the left wanted to pack the Supreme Court, right? It's just like any large administrative type of situation. I mean, look at any large private civilian organization, right? When you have a board of directors or something like that, and then you go, well, we're not going to have just 8 or 10 board of directors that are going to make decisions or something like that. We're going to have like 70 or 80 of them, right? Yeah, so the whole idea is that by expanding that and picking the people carefully that you put into those positions and just doing a lot of them, you almost sort of just solidify the entire sanctity of that against the people who are actually there to try and do the right thing and have, let's just say, an opinion that might not exactly line up with the people that packed the court in the first place. I mean, if they had their way, they would add 100 Supreme Court justices. And then it's okay. Well, yeah. How many conservatives do you think are going to be in that group? Not a lot, right? So, look, we dodged a bullet. Manchin is a Democrat. He could have easily nuked the filibuster and just stood along the party line and allowed that to happen, but he didn't. So we have to remember that there are victories that we're going to see in the courts. We have to be patient. We have to play chess, not checkers. And right now, some of these doozies that are being handed down in these lower courts are certainly going our way. And look, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to be very vigilant with this stuff moving forward, and we have to be very careful and very methodical in the way that we go about all of this. And it's going to be interesting to see. But anyway, great job on 80% Arms for towing the line and holding steadfast in this situation. And look, these people spend a lot of money to fight these folks, right? A company could just fold up and say, you know what, this isn't worth all the effort or stress. We're just going to fold up and pick up our crap and go home, right? But they're not. Like, they're trying to fight this because that's the right thing to do. Because what these people are doing is completely wrong and immoral and impermissible and completely unconstitutional. So anyway, have you all a great day. We've got many more videos on the way. I've got a ton of stuff that I am doing. We've got some great range reviews on the way, a ton of hunting content that's coming up soon, some awesome air gun content. So there are lots of things going on. We've got some new meltdown videos coming up this winter. So definitely make sure you tune in and everything. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Iraq Veteran 8888 over on Twitter, also known as X, but I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like to call it Twitter, the Bird app. If you're not on Twitter, you need to get a Twitter account because it is a great place to grow on social media. It's a great place to, meet like-minded people and to have a great amount of conversation and discourse related to pretty much all sorts of things that are going on in our society. It is the place right now to really receive a relatively good, unbiased opinion on things that are going on if you follow the right people. So follow me over there, Iraq Veteran 8888. I would appreciate a follow there on Twitter if you're on there. Anyway, have yourselves a great day. Many more on the way. We'll see you soon.